Justin,
Yeah.
earlier today, a developer at another company emailed uh, a line of code, a whole bunch of code actually, to one of our engineers here in the office and asked them if they would put it into production or if, in fact, he wanted to submit a pull request
Like as an attachment to an email?
in the actual body of the email.
Copy and paste this out,
Copy.
but copy it into production. I haven't seen that one in a minute. It's been a while since I dragged things from a desktop to an FTP server or FTP client on my machine. I mean, we have designers that are using GitHub and issuing pull requests for prototypes. So
Right. Well, some
excuse
people are
me.
living like it's 1999 still. Okay, then we can cue the intro music. Then go for it, Justin.
All right. Well, welcome into Leap to Scale. My name is Justin Davis, veteran AI, and I guess I'm veteran UX and product guy, and newly becoming a veteran AI person. And here with
Yeah.
my co-host.
Yeah, I'm Greg Ross Monroe. I am a reformed software engineer, and mainly I run like a service business now. But yeah, we're here today
Yes.
to talk about some fun stuff about how actually you can use AI in your company and how to build a strategy around it.
Yep. Yep.
And I have a theory here, Justin, which is that there are kind of two ways that people in service businesses kind of there's two extremes of how people go about thinking about what their AI strategy is going to be. Everyone AI is everyone's the big buzzword,
Yep.
and there's the two poles are I have I'm going to run as many little experiments as possible,
Mm,
and those experiments don't go anywhere,
mhm.
and I'm just like throwing stuff at the wall because I need to be doing something. When without any intention, I'm just like trying to do stuff. And on the far end of that is uh, I'm paralyzed by the optionality that's out there, and so there's nothing that I'm not doing anything.
Right. How do I even start to think about pulling this together into some reasonable strategy for how to use it?
Yes,
Yep.
and I see this time and time again where people come in to talk to me and they say, "Hey, we need to incorporate AI into what we're doing. What's the best way to do that?" And or they've come and they said, "Look," and then they haven't done anything. It's 2026, and they haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, they've done like 50 things and none of them are like paying off. Have you seen this
Right.
before?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're seeing some of this, like some of the early reports, right? There's some pretty scathing reports about the adoption of AI in the enterprise and how poorly it's gone. And, a lot of people kind of chalk that up to, oh, AI isn't all that, but I think what it really is symptomatic of is exactly those two poles you're talking about. One, companies going, this is so new, we don't even understand it, let alone understand how to make a strategy out of it. And then two, some of the companies that are more tinker minded, or some of the people that are more tinkering minded inside of some companies, are kicking the tires, using it to write emails, they're using it to write proposals, they're using it to automate
Yep.
little pieces of their job. But it's little one-off kind of experiments, right? And it doesn't really move the needle at a real organizational level because you got to coordinate those things to really start to have impact.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there another way? Is there a better way? Is or like a middle path between these two extremes where you
Yeah.
can how do you come up with an AI strategy and can you use AI to create a strategy? That's a leading
Yeah.
question because I know the answer, but like I'm going to ask it. That's how you have to run like a conversation.
It is a leading question. Yes, it is a leading question. But it's a reasonable question. And clearly the listeners probably can tell that what we are getting at is that somewhere in the middle of that is where you can actually be really successful. Um, I think so let's break this down. Let's think about the problem on both sides and let's talk about like what that middle pathway looks like, right? So on one side you have complete deer in the headlights syndrome. There's a lot of AI. I don't know what to do with it. How do I even think about it? I'm not sure. On the other side, you have some random experiments that you might be doing and you might be saying, well, this didn't I don't know if it worked. It's interesting, it's fun, but it's sort of like watching it write a poem. Like it's entertaining, but is it useful or not? I'm not sure, right? So how do you go from there to some meaningful way of using AI in your company. Because here's the thing, like this is going to be around and in forever. And in some ways, the question is similar to one that you might have asked in the early 1980s when in saying, how might we use these new things called spreadsheets? Which granted spreadsheets existed in a physical form as well, so it's not exactly the same. But when Excel came onto the block, right? You had a lot of people that were jumping in and going, oh, what can this thing do? Right. And you had some people were like, I don't even know how we would use this. But in the middle of that is some level of experimentation that leads to learning that can help you to uncover that AI strategy. And I think that's what we'll talk a little bit about today, is that kind of splitting the uprights, as it were, and experimenting. What is the right way to say it? Sort of, if you're going to experiment and you're going to quote unquote fail at those experiments, meaning like you'll do some things that like the organization sort of yawns at, which again I think is happening a lot. I think the question is, are you failing in a productive direction? And because failing in a productive direction, trying these little experiments, giving your employees the reins to go use these tools and figure out how they're useful and how they're not useful. Action. I saw this recently in a blog post, and I think it's really apropos to this, is that action produces information. So sometimes when you don't know what to do and you're staring at this strategy question, you're going, well, how are we going to use AI? Our stakeholders are saying that we should, our shareholders are saying that we should, or I just think we should, but I don't know how. Sometimes just doing something will lead you to more information that will help you to understand the picture better. It's almost like revealing more of the map in a video game, right?
Yeah.
Like you're getting more information, you're learning the world a little bit better.
It reminds me a little bit. A few episodes back we talked about prototyping,
Yeah.
and one thing that kind of stuck out at me is when you were talking about prototyping, like an actual thing where you saw on a piece of paper, or you're like drawing something in Figma, or using an AI to prototype a tool.
Yeah.
You said that you're trying to kind of fail in one direction, and that kind of stuck with me, right? Like,
Yeah.
this idea that you're making mistakes, but you're moving in the right direction to actually where you want to go. You like build something, you show it to a user, and you get closer and closer to what you actually build.
Yeah.
I think what you're suggesting is you can kind of do the same thing with strategy if the strategy is if the world around you is moving so quickly that actually might need to be the way that you work with technology strategy for now, is like more rapid iteration to kind of uncover that idea.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. Because I would definitely argue that action is better than not action in almost all scenarios. Certainly there are times where it's better to wait and stop and not do things, but those scenarios are way less common than the scenarios where you should probably just do something. And I think that the whole like kind of be wrong in the right direction thing is, you should have a general, well, there's a couple different ways I guess that you could think about it, which is there's either a general pathway that you could say, well, I know we should use AI. Break it down to some broad categories. Should you use AI customer facing to make their job easier, to make their job better, or to make the product experience do something that it can't do today? Or should you use AI to make your make your company more efficient, right? That's at least two lanes. And you can kind of go, okay, well, let's think about make the company efficient thing. Well, let's go experiment with that kind of stuff, right? And you can at least sort of like narrow the path a little bit and then do your experiments inside of that. It gives it a little bit of directionality.
Okay, so let's call that boundary conditions. Set boundary conditions.
Okay, set a boundary condition. Yep.
Like a common thing in strategy is you say, hey, we're going to set a boundary condition. Like, what are the business goals, margins, like your cycle time, quality, customer retention, capacity, etc. Then you talk about what the non-negotiables are. So like maybe your data sensitivity or your compliance, or and the client trust, employee happiness, those kind of things, right? Like those are non-negotiables. These are your boundaries. You set your boundaries, and then what is AI going to? So now the last question point there is probably like, what is AI going to, what are you going to allow the AI to do for you versus where do you want the human?
Yeah. Yep.
So then you probably need to move on to like looking at your workflows once you've got these boundary conditions, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's looking at workflows or looking at work centers, right? And saying, I think that one thing you could do is you could kind of, instead of thinking of it in terms of flows, because flow does start to get into, maybe it gets too precise in terms of directionality. And you want to say, well, let's run some experiments in accounting, finance. Let's run some experiments in customer intake. And then you can say, well, what kinds of activities do we do there? And what kinds of tools and what kinds of things are happening in the space in accounting? Well, we have all these reports that we run. Hey, why don't we go play? Is anyone going to play with, like, fool around with the AI stuff in Excel? See what happens. See what it does, right? Send people out. And so maybe one way that you can do it is you could say, here's some work centers, here's some areas of work. Send the more tinker-minded employees that you have, the folks, and you know who these people are. These are the people who are already suggesting improvements to your technology stack or already show an interest in this. Take those people and say, hey, look, I want you to go on an exploratory mission for me. We're trying to figure out, is there anything interesting going on with the AI stuff in the accounting world or in this other thing or wherever that person works, right? And say, can you just go and why don't we have a meeting in a week? Or we'll have a meeting every week for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and we'll just talk about what you're learning. Go see what's out there. Go find out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love the idea of like of work areas as a way of going about this. You could probably look at processes or workflows as well, and they
Mm,
might be inside those work areas.
yep.
I would say that the next step after you've identified those work areas to play in is to identify the sources of truth inside of them,
Yeah.
right? You if you know the work area or the workflow that you're going for, and then you kind of list out what those sources of truth are going to be for where the data is coming from to be able to do your experiment.
Yep.
Like, is it time data or like your cycle time, your lead time?
Right. Is it QuickBooks, right? Your data might be in QuickBooks. Your data might be in Harvest or whatever, Jira. Yep.
And then I think you're probably going to want like quality data as well, potentially. Like,
Mhm.
look at your to see if you're tracking things like rework or escalations or
Mhm.
QA failures, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then you probably want to like cluster them together.
Mhm.
And once you've got that, you've got like a bunch of data that that you have in the work areas that you are trying to go through, maybe in the processes that you have. And then I would say that you want to go through and create a what we call the 3 A's of the opportunity backlog, AI opportunity backlog, which I'm going to say is automate, which is like
Yep.
reduce the number of steps in something,
Yep.
augment, which is assist the humans,
Okay.
right? Or assure, which catch errors and enforce standards.
Okay. Yep.
And
I
so
like it.
once you've got you picked like in these work areas, with the data I have and the outputs that I have, the inputs and the outputs, can I what's going to give me the best ROI? Automation, augmentation, or assurance,
Yep.
improving things, and then you can score those in some sort of rubric,
Mhm.
right? Once you've done that, I think you take some bets, right? You place
Yeah.
some bets.
Yep. Yep. And you
How do
and
you,
you have to go just try. I mean, the thing about developing strategy, think about creating anything or solving any problem is you can only paint with the colors that that you have on the palette, right? And so if you don't understand how some of the stuff works, if you don't know that there is AI in Excel that will build the formulas for you, if you don't know that there is AI that will write your proposals for you, if you don't know that there's AI that will do all of these things, then you can't actually get it into your strategy because it's not a paint color on your palette. And so
100?
and so I think when you look at these work centers, you say, man, we really want to improve finance. We really want to improve delivery. We really want to improve quality, whatever it is. Then going into this exploratory thing and saying, okay, let's go understand what things we have to work with out there. ends up feeding back. And what you end up with is that exploration leads into refinement of the strategy. And you go, oh, okay, I didn't actually know that there was AI that would do that. I didn't know AI could do that. That's cool. Well, if that's true, then can it do this? And so then one question leads to another, and you start to get this cascade of questions. And those cascade of questions start to outline the skeleton of what the strategy ends up being.
Yeah, I think that's there's like that's kind of more the element of the unstructured experimentation.
Yep.
That you like there's almost an element of play in some of the stuff, and you've got people inside your organization who are curious and who like just want to play with this stuff, and those people are going to have a great time with it, and they're going to bubble up the ideas. But if you follow kind of a more structured path where you say, hey, we're going to make these bets in these experiments and inside with these constraints inside of these work areas, then you're going to unlock creativity and experimentation and exploration in people in your organization who are not like that naturally as curious as to like just go on and start playing with things.
Right.
Because if you give people unbounded boxes, most people are not like, oh, I want to go and paint the entire world with my palette. So like I'm going to spend there's also so much noise about AI. Like if you just go and I am a professional in this world and I'm over freaking whelmed the whole time.
Yeah.
I get 2 emails a day from Substacks that I subscribe to with like what is new in the AI world today. And every day it is just it's like the ocean washing over you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm trying my best to keep up. But if you, and so for like a normal person, you can't ask them to do that. But if you tell them like, go do the specific experiment with this in the specific work area with these specific pieces of data that we know that we have that are good, they're going to go and find like that pathway that you've kind of created for them, those guardrails. They'll end up finding new and interesting ways to do that. And I would argue that the one thing that you need to give them when one of the things you need to give them when you send them out on this mission for experimentation, or you go about it yourself, is when you make those bets, you should have a hypothesis, right? And that hypothesis is, if I'm able to change something using an AI or a workflow tool or something like that, what metric that I have today, if you don't have the metric, it's like kind of pointless to even try, but you probably have some metrics inside your organization. What's kind of like the success threshold on that metric? What am I trying to change?
Right.
Who owns it? And then what the kill criteria is. Because one of the problems that people do is they start with these wonderful ideas and they go and they go down that pathway and they are completely like they get lost in the weeds because it sounds like such a great idea that there's no, it'll never stop. It'll just keep running and burning money. So you have to say, okay, we're gonna kill this thing after 3 months, or you've got X amount of time to do it, or if it doesn't change, reduce intake speed by 25% in the next 3 months, then we kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think that it's very easy for projects like this to become kind of time and money sinks, because especially with AI, it is very tempting to get kind of pie-eyed and wowed about the kind of outputs, right? And you can kind of lure yourself into thinking that it has value just kind of intrinsically because it can produce things that are kind of impressive just due to the size and complexity of what it can do automatically, right? It actually may not have value to you, but it is valuable just as entertainment, I guess, right? Or whatever. And so the way to temper that is, I think, exactly what you're saying, is that you have to eventually tie these back to something and say, okay, just because we can do it, is it actually moving a needle on something? Are a couple of different things. And I think with AI, it's definitely easy to fall into the trap of like, it feels like it's moving the needle because it's so impressive in its own right.
Okay, so then I have a
Yeah.
question for you because I mean, even when you and I brainstorm together, and we brainstorm with like a generative AI in the room with us, almost like as a third party, which does help, right? But one of the things that um, these generative AI systems are sycophants. They're
Yeah.
apple polishes, man.
Yep.
They think like great idea, Justin, or
Yep.
great idea, Greg. Like, well, you're a
Yep.
genius. Like, no one's ever come up with this idea before. Like the automate, assure, um, and augment. Like,
Yep.
brilliant, right? Whereas, like, I'm pretty sure that that is something that came from like a Deloitte paper or whatever, something like that. So, I guess my question is, how do you, no, before I get to the question, this is like one of those things that those big criticisms that people make about AI, especially younger people using AI, which
Mhm.
is that they're much more um they're much more easy to be influenced, and so the AI can like convince them to do something bad maybe, or can uh
Yep.
and so they're listening to it. How do
Yep.
you go about making sure that you're not just being flattered the whole time, and
Yeah.
that you're just like in some sort of AI groupthink when it comes to strategy? How
Yeah,
do you
it's a fantastic question. I mean, I think that there's a number of different things. I think one of it is kind of like kind of like addiction. I mean, like the awareness of it is the first step. And so, I think there are a couple practical things. One is that the sycophantic nature of the models is reducing. There's a widespread criticism of the models earlier this year, and some of the models like Opus from Anthropic and certainly Gemini will be more neutrally critical of things than previous iterations, but still they lean sycophantic because they want to continue the conversation. Like their goal is to
yeah.
drive toward yeses, right? More or less. So there's a confirmation bias kind of built in. Um, One way to, there's a
Wait, that
couple
is
of,
something that's something very important for people to know. Can you repeat that again about like what the AI is actually trying to get to?
yeah, like AIs are kind of probabilistic success machines. They are trying to get to a yes answer. I mean, that is what they're not designed to by the way that they work, which is they're coming up with kind of probabilistic next tokens and like next things, and they're selecting those actually to some degree randomly, to some degree not. But the point is that the math and the underlying science is trying to solve a problem in the affirmative, right? By its
Yeah.
nature, and so the sycophantic nature of it is sort of like a natural, like, well, of course it is, because that's what it's trying to do. And you can combat that by telling it in your prompt, please be critical of me. Don't be overly critical. Don't be critical just to be, because again, this can cut both ways. If you say, be critical of it, again, it's going to now optimize for being critical. And so it's just going to be critical for critical sake. And now it might tell you things that are, that are maybe not great criticism,
Yeah.
and so you can play around with that in your prompting, try to be critical, but don't be overly critical. Examine this on its merits, things like that that you can use. You can also write this into your system instructions, your agents.md or something like that that loads every time. So you can kind of get the model to act that way and kind of get the sycophanticism, however you say that, kind of like trained out of it by default in your models. So just, yeah, definitely something very important to keep in mind though.
The
Yeah.
one of the things that I sometimes do when kind of brainstorming with these tools and trying to and building things is, rather than telling it to be critical of me, I say, give me a response as if you were business leader X that I respect, and business leader Y, and business leader Z.
Oh,
And
I
I'll
love
say,
that.
I want you to play Bill Gates, Scott Galloway, and I don't know, like
Hologram.
uh, yeah,
Whatever.
and
Yeah.
like, what would they say about this idea?
Yeah, I
And
like
then
that a lot.
that like kind of almost takes it out of like out of my mind and out of the
Yep.
like AI's kind of persona, and tries to put it into somebody else's, and that helps me like think about it.
I think it's a really, really great idea because we all have like leaders and people that we look up to that kind of influence our thinking, and we want
Yeah.
to be like them. We want to shape our businesses in the same way that they think. Everybody probably has somebody like that. I mean, and if you don't, maybe do some reading and find somebody like that. Because you can always learn from people like that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Okay, so then now we've got the ideas. We've got a couple of experiments designed. I would say 2 experiments. Don't do 10. Don't start with 10 experiments.
Yeah.
Do 2. Like,
Yeah.
pick things. Like, you've got the kill criteria. You've got the metrics you're trying to change. You've got the hypotheses,
Yep.
yeah, and that you want. Then run your experiments, right?
Yep.
Probably with some guardrails. Make sure you know what those, like, everything. When you do experiments, my suggestion is in your prompts, in your workflows, whatever you're doing, all your AI output should come with the term draft. It should be labeled draft, AI generated draft, or something like that as well.
Yep.
And every single time you change your prompt, store that prompt for like an audit, as you store like a log of it
Yep.
as you go through. There's some software out there that does this, but you can just use a text file so that you can kind of see which, and then have a result of working with our spreadsheet.
Yep.
And then make sure that last final sign off of whatever it is a human being actually going and reading or doing the thing and making sure it's correct.
Yep.
Do not need to put your experiments into like production immediately. They should be things that you focus on for saving time, and they should be read by a human while they're in experimental phase.
Yep. One of my favorite frameworks for managing this is the ICE framework, and we use this in product development. Works identical for this. And maybe we'll do an episode where we go into more detail about the ICE framework. But in ICE, what you do is you measure each experiment, you rate scale of 1 to 10 on impact, confidence, and ease. Impact to the business, 1 to 10. 1 is no impact, 10 is this will change everything. Confidence is like a meta question, which is how confident are we that if this works, that it will have that impact? Helps to temper your impact score. And then ease, 1 is this is impossible. 10 is we don't even have to think about it. It's so easy. Just add the numbers up and take an average, just divided by 3. That'll give you a number. And then sort your experiments by the sum total average or whatever. And there you have the experiments that are most likely to pay off. And it's a nice prioritization system.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then run your experiments, see what the results are.
Yep.
And I would suggest maybe trying to do 1 to 2 of them per quarter at this time.
Yep, I agree. And I think in most businesses, depending on what you're using it for, a quarter is probably the amount of cycle time you need in order to know if it's working or not.
Yeah.
Because you got to put enough things through it to know if you're making an improvement.
Yeah. So just quickly to review, step 1, define your strategic boundaries or
right.
Your constraints.
What lane do you want to work in?
Step 2, work out what kind of work areas or even workflows potentially you want to do inside of those work areas. Identify the constraints that you have and your sources of truth with your data. And then build like a backlog of ideas. Step 5, define whatever like your strategic bets are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're not projects, they're little bets. Call them bets.
Right.
Then set up the experiments. Run the experiments with good kill criteria and good success criteria.
Yep.
And then make sure you've got those guardrails, like it says draft or, in it, and it's not going out into the real world, day 1. And then productize the thing and move on to the next one and repeat quarterly.
Yep.
Use the AAA for assure, augment, and automate to work out what kind of things you want to work on, and use the ICE framework for prioritization.
Yep.
All right, I learned something there. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I learn something every time talking to you, man. I appreciate it.
Likewise, sir. Well, we hope that all y'all listening also, hopefully that was helpful and interesting. And let us know how your experiments are going. We would love to hear what you're experimenting with. Leave in the comments and wherever you are listening to this so that we can see what you're working on.
My friend, have a great rest of your day. I will speak to you next time. Thanks for listening, everyone.